Hey everybody, Alex here, healthhacksreview.com. So this video is on a very unique type of form of therapy called exercise with oxygen training. Now, it's something that I believe is going to just explode over the next 10 years. You're going to be hearing it on TV, you're going to hear it from athletes, all sorts of athletes in every sort of sport is going to be doing it. It'll be at the gyms. I guarantee you, 10 to 15 years, it'll be all over the place. And the reason is this, and also for a lot of home use, by the way, not just in commercial settings and out there, but also a lot of home use as well. Because the benefits are tremendous and it's affordable. Okay? Those two things. Tremendous benefits, very efficient and affordable to do. Okay? And so this was originally created or discovered by a German scientist, or let's just use the word scientist for now, a couple decades ago, a few decades ago. And the information was kind of gone back, and there's been some follow-up research studies and things like that. So there is actually a lot of research studies on it, a lot of research in general on oxygen types of therapies, what it does to the body, how it works. Okay, so exercise with oxygen training, what is that? It's literally EWOT. It's exactly, the name explains what it is. You're exercising, but at the same time, you're also getting oxygen therapy. Oxygen, pure, a higher grade of oxygen than the atmospheric oxygen concentration, which in general is like 19 to 23%, let's just say. It just depends on your climate, where you're located. In the city, out in the middle of the forest, you know. Okay, so that's the concentration of normal oxygen in the air. When you're doing this form of exercise with oxygen training, you're always using an oxygen concentrator, it's called. And what that is doing is it's not an oxygen tank, it's an oxygen concentrator. So a concentrator just simply pulls in the air from your room or around you, and it concentrates it to around 94 to 97% pure oxygen. Well, it's not pure, but concentrating it to that level. When you say pure oxygen, what that means is you have like an oxygen tank, and you know they've pressurized it, and they just put pure oxygen in there. It's more like what you'd see. Some people have emphysema, are just breathing pure oxygen, or you see in a hospital, or it's more like those medical types of situations and scenes. A concentrator is accessible. You can get a concentrator. It's just easier and much more affordable. And it's endless. It has an endless supply of continuing to concentrate oxygen anywhere you're at. Versus a tank runs out, of course, and put in new oxygen, right? So in the long run, a concentrator is, of course, way more affordable. Okay, so when you exercise, you have to think about all the benefits that we associate with exercise and what we know about exercise. Okay, and essentially it's going to put a greater demand on the cells, okay, for energy resources. The respiratory rates of the cells, the mitochondria, all that core stuff is going to go up, way up, than just normal resting mode. And so because there's a greater demand on the body, there's a greater stress response, of course, right? You know, sprinting for 2 miles, for a lot of people, that would be a lot. That'd be pretty intense for them, versus like walking 2 miles. Okay, so the big difference there is a greater metabolic demand that the cells require. And one of the core things they require goes back to something called the Krebs cycle. If you don't know what that is and you're really curious about understanding more the biological components of how cells work and how the core role of oxygen is, it's KREBS cycle, Krebs cycle. Might even Wikipedia, role of oxygen in cells, things like that. But essentially, the cells are going to require a greater amount of oxygen to cross the cell membrane, and hydrogen plays an important role in this, all the cellular processes of creating ATP and so on and so forth. So because of those greater demands, there'll be a greater stress response. And if you've heard of the term conditioning the body, some people could be in a healthier condition than other people that are in less of a healthy condition. And that a lot of times ties back to your body basically being able to handle a higher stress response because it's more efficient. It has greater energy resources at its disposal to be able to use. Efficiency is a big part of it. And it's able to then respond with a much greater response to stress and adapt to that. And those adaptations are beneficial to you. Okay, that's the key there. Because exercise, what it does, it stresses the body out. That's not good. But your body then adapts to that, right, afterwards. And that's where all the beneficial cascade of downstream changes occur. So when we exercise and we increase that demand, and the cells are stressing out. We need more. We need to recondition ourselves and change. Then you supply like a concentration of oxygen resources. This, of course, the body just takes it up. The capillaries, everything, it just takes it up, as much as it can because it needs it. And so, I'll give you an example. You know that you're reaching your exercise threshold when you become very out of breath, right? Something so basic. Or that you're just tired, I can't do it anymore. I can't. I'm done. Can't do it anymore. Maybe you've just climbed too many steps or hiked too high. There's a million scenarios, right? So the demand is exceeding really where you're conditioned. But so the opportune time to give your body oxygen and all the benefits that are associated with it is when you've increased your needs, your demand in that moment. You then supply the pure oxygen or the concentrated oxygen, and your body will then be able to take itself past that threshold to a whole new area of performance, a whole new threshold. Threshold goes up. You'll still get tired. You'll still want to stop, even when you're doing the concentrated, oxygen. But it will be higher and higher and higher. Your threshold will go. You can go for longer. You can go more intensely. You'll keep on achieving better results. So for the performance standpoint, it doesn't get a whole lot better than like enhancing your performance if you're into that, okay? For everybody else, you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be all about, increasing your performance threshold. If you're just into increasing your health capacity, the strength of your immune system, maybe you have a specific health condition, that when we start to look at disease in the body or health conditions of any kind, we come back to a lot of the same core cellular processes. Everything's made of cells, right? So what better thing than to give your body and your cells an increasing amount of what it needs? Whenever you see disease, a type of health condition, you always have circulation issues, almost always, directly then related to oxygenation issues. A poor efficiency in energy utilization, downstream the electron transport chain. We always come back to basically to these core cellular processes being interconnected with everything. Okay, so when you do something like exercise with oxygen training, we all know exercise is good for you, the way that you adapt to it. How do you make it 10 times better for you? You add oxygen into the mix. You make it 10 times more efficient. Actually, it's more than 10 times efficient. It depends on what type of program you're doing. But so for those of you who also like to get 90% results and with just 10% of work, this is a way to do it. It's a hack. It's a true health hack. Now what happens when you're not exercising, right? This is not just like, I can exercise better than I did before. Your whole body's upscaling, your mitochondria efficiency. Every cell in your body is becoming healthier because of you've now increased the threshold that each cell can. It's like turning your. Let me think of a silly analogy, but it's like turning like an old school VW Beetle, maybe one from like 1970, right? It's turning that into a Lamborghini. Okay, It's kind of a fair analogy. Imagine turning that into a Lamborghini. Okay, so now you're riding around in a Lamborghini body instead of an old VW body. So there's things to enjoy, new things to enjoy, a better well-being in a lot of different ways. Because remember, everything's based off cells. Did you want better memory? Did you want, less depressions even connected to it? A better digestive system? Did you want to reduce and mitigate cancer risks, or reduce and go after a specific disease? I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. All of that is much more possible at Lamborghini settings, at Lamborghini, levels, if you will. So the cell and the core processes of the cell, okay, is like machinery, and that machinery, those motors, are inside the hood of the car. It's inside the Lamborghini. It's inside the VW. What does that run off of? Mainly fuel, petrol. Okay, and so your body, that core machinery, is going to be running off of oxygen. Not just oxygen, but it's a core element in the process, that and hydrogen, that makes everything work, life. And so that's kind of the way you gotta look at it. To upgrade, in this case, upgrading the engine, upgrading the machinery, a big part of it, is like indirectly, you're upgrading your fuel. So imagine if you could turn the VW into the Lamborghini engine and components by just giving it a better fuel, right? And driving it a certain way, right? That would be your exercise routine. So if you just continue to exercise, but you add in an increased fuel, it actually changes the components around the engine. That's incredible when you think about it. Now with exercise with oxygen training, what the traditionally in the original studies and the new ones that have been done over the last couple decades or whatever, it's usually utilizing something called high intensity training. Okay, HIT, you can Google it, H.I.T. High intensity training is an interval training at a high intensity way is most common. The reason it's most common is because if you're just doing traditional training where your goal is aerobic, increased heart rate, that type of thing, doing high intensity interval training where essentially you're just exercising really intensely for a short period of time, and then you're resting for a little bit of a longer period of time, or slowing down your pace a lot. And it could be stationary equipment, it could be running, it doesn't matter. It could be swimming. So you go really intensely, and then you go slow. Really intensely, slow. And you just go back and forth cycles of that, maybe 8 to 15 cycles. It just depends on what you want to do. But what they found in studies is essentially doing that interval high intensity type of training is way more efficient than just doing the same pace for 45 minutes or 2 hours. It's like eight times more efficient, if not more. So you can actually achieve what would maybe normally take you 45 minutes, you can achieve that in 15 minutes by doing that sort of training. Mercola, Dr. Mercola, definitely has done a bunch of articles on that. He's pretty good for a lot of this mainstream info. But so what we take is the best, if you will, of conditioning the body in a short period of time, right, efficiently with the high intensity type of interval training. And then we pair that with the best fuel that your body mainly uses, right, which is the oxygen. Wow, that's an amazing synergy together. And so you have something that takes the results to a whole other level that normally are not possible because of what reason? Because of the deficiency of just having normal oxygen concentrations in your environment. Okay, and so pretty neat stuff. You can basically, if you already have an existing concentrator, that's most likely you can convert that. Okay, you can convert most good concentrators, oxygen concentrators, to become a high output one. And by high output one, I essentially mean that you're going to convert the existing to put out a higher liters per minute and to fill a chamber It's just basically a piece of material that holds the oxygen, and that sort of chamber of extra oxygen there is going to be supplied along with the active conversion of concentration of oxygen that your system will be putting out, which is probably like 6 to 10 liters per minute. That's on average. And so with that extra chamber of oxygen, okay, your base or reservoir is the term that they really use. You're going to be able to have pretty much over that 15-minute exercise regimen an endless supply of oxygen, as much as you can breathe, as much as you can breathe. So that's the key right there. Is the issue with other types of exercise with oxygen training systems, and even in the traditional research they were using, they were limited. They were limited by what those concentrators could put out. The rate of oxygen conversion, 10 liters per minute, maybe a little over, okay, if it's tweaked, maybe a little under. So meaning that as you needed to breathe more and more and more during the exercise and your demands increased, the machine couldn't keep up with it. So you were breathing in regular oxygen concentration from the environment. And also the other issue is a lot of the traditional mask design with a traditional amount of liters per minute, you end up losing a lot of the oxygen as you breathe out, and you push a lot of it away and not enough is coming in. So you're actually getting a fraction of even what a concentrator could potentially give you, because of the mask design and because it's also not delivering a huge influx. So imagine just getting tremendously more oxygen that was even possible in the original studies. And if you look at the original studies, by the way, it's really amazing results. I mean, it's awesome stuff. It's awesome stuff even at a lower level. But there's one, and I'm thinking of one system in particular, by the way, that gives you the extra reservoir, the conversion, and allows you to breathe as much oxygen as possible. And that's the key. That's the key. Can you push your system, your body, I'm saying, with some of the existing older systems? You can, but it's far, far less efficient, basically. That's the main difference, okay? And the costs, it doesn't match up, actually, when you look at it. So what I'm telling you is this, is that there's one company that's more newer on the scene that basically allows you to get the endless supply of oxygen. That's just the way to go. It's a no-brainer. Okay. Will there be probably a new competitor that has a similar system with just the extra reservoir of oxygen, as much oxygen as you can breathe, the mask, that type of thing? Will there be a competitor brand in the future? Probably. I mean, it's not rocket science, this type of system. And I think it's gonna explode really in popularity. Already more than it already is. Over the next 10 to 15 years, you'll probably see new, identical, similar systems. But here's the thing: is you can't really improve upon the system from the standpoint that exercise with oxygen therapy is pretty simple. Okay, you do your exercise, you take the concentrated oxygen. You're not going to be able to breathe more than 100 liters of oxygen per minute, which is what one of these systems does. You can't really improve it, okay? So there probably will be some more competitors in the future. Yes, it's unusual that there's only one company that really is supplying this massive amount of oxygen flow, but there's nothing to improve upon, basically. So the system's complete for what it is, and it gets you better results than the original studies, the original research with exercise with oxygen training done in Germany, Russia, a few other countries. So if you have more questions about this, you might have existing health conditions, you're thinking, will this be good for me? By the way, the answer is yes, for pretty much almost any condition, health condition. It's just like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, any sort of oxygen therapy, ozone, et cetera, et cetera. it tends to help with any disease. It tends to help with almost any condition, because what do cells, once again, the core machinery of your body, what do they require? Oxygen, okay? And if we look at most people's bodies, they're not perfectly healthy, and when somebody's not perfectly healthy, we see the same things, okay? And one of those classic things is oxygen tissue levels are not as high as ideally they could be, okay? They're not as high as when you were 4 years old, okay? So that's the whole point here, is it truly is at the same time a longevity strategy, an anti-aging strategy. It's a strategy for anything, whatever your goal is. And so, again, that's why I really feel that oxygen therapies are some of the best things out there, for sure. And every time I look at, whether it's a HOCAT, HOCATT, you see my site there, or you're looking at hyperbaric, oxygen therapy, you're looking at these types of things, it's not surprising they get amazing results. Oxygen, it's fundamental, okay? So take a serious look at this from the standpoint is that the system's very affordable. You do need a prescription, by the way, which is extremely easy to get, to buy a concentrator, just so you know, because they're FDA cleared medical devices. But it takes up hardly any space. If you're using it in your home, your clinic, again, it's a very small type of thing. To get all the benefits, you just need some form of stationary exercise equipment, okay? It could be a very small little exercise bike. It could be a treadmill, rowing machine. In general, what's going to be better and put a greater demand on your body are forms of exercise that are going to be working your lower body a lot. So like a treadmill is really good, and or a stationary bike. And a vertical stationary bike is better because midway through, when you're really trying to push yourself hard, you can get off the seat, and like, you know what I'm talking about. We've all ridden a bike. Anyways, and so you can get vertical. If you're doing the horizontal sitting recumbent bike, you can't do that. You can't really like stand and bike. It doesn't work. So that's going to put a greater demand on your body, the running or that type of vertical bike, recumbent bike. So I'd recommend going with those. But if you have any more questions about that, myself or my EWOT expert will talk with you further. But I do believe that this should be just like a standard piece of health equipment to have in your home or at your practice, your clinic or your center. Hands down. Okay? You have to focus yourself on getting things that work with your cells on a very fundamental level. That's where you want to prioritize. That's where you want to spend your money first. So oxygen doesn't get a lot more fundamental than that, okay? Infrared therapy, and this is now talking about a different product, of course, but just throwing it out there. When you look at really how infrared works and changes water in the body, this is the key. And what it does with the mitochondria and the cells, it's also very fundamental. That's why that's also a pretty good standard piece of equipment to have to try to secure at some point, okay, either for yourself or for your clients. Before you even look at anything else, okay, because most things come after that. There's plenty of other awesome things to get. There's a million products and equipment out there. But stay focused on the core cellular processes and what stimulates those core cellular processes, what's most required by the body for those core cellular processes. That'll give you the best ROI for your health, from a financial standpoint, whatever it is. Anyways, thanks for watching. And if you have any more questions, you know what to do.